because of my universal search here. So quickly, we're going to drop below this line here that kind of separates the Mitel 1 from the 1CX add-on, and we go to Hub Inbox. So the nice thing about that, all of the tools are absolutely available. I don't have to switch applications. Everything is there within this one application. So for my call center agents or my CSR groups or my payroll or my IT group, whatever group I have, whether we have internal customers or externally facing customers, I don't have to switch applications. I can still go back and see who's available, whether they're a contact center agent or whether they're a back office person. All of this is still available to me. This customer interaction person, this person that deals with customers, is going to mainly live out of their Hub Inbox. This is where new calls will come into the queue. My waiting room here, which I can get by clicking on waiting room, or I can do show waiting room, and that slides me over. This would be the queue. Now, we don't have any calls waiting in the queue, and when I say calls, always know that I mean this could be a message from our website. This could be those universal routing interactions that we're talking about. So Facebook Messenger, it could be WhatsApp. All of those would appear here. So this would be my queue where things would appear here. However, I can give you a taste of what that looks like from my history. So even though we don't have anything waiting in the queue currently, we have had some queue interactions this morning. And there they are. So you can see the folks that interacted. Now, I'm seeing more than one queue because I am a supervisor, and so I have the capability of looking at all the queues. So you'll see various queues here. You'll see Dennis Dombrowski queue, Mike Roberts queue, and a lot of Dennis Dombrowski. I called into the South Central queue. And so any of these I clicked on. So let's just take a look at Dennis Dombrowski because he's done a great thing here, and he's put in a message from the website here. So you can see as the message came in, he's saying thank you. Or we're having the bot respond and say thank you, and then we're prompting that customer for information or allowing them to select what they would like to do. The customer selected, rather than watching a video or going to a frequently asked question, that they wanted to chat with an agent, so they just clicked on this, and so that responded back, and it transferred them to Dennis, and then Dennis answered and continued his conversation there. So that is in the call history. Just to give you an idea of some different ones here, I'll click on the South Central so you get to see a call, and I know that it's called based on the icon. And this is one that I put in earlier, and notice that this visually looks a little bit different, and this is what we call our visual display templates. And so in this case, based on this queue or maybe even this agent, we were able to customize this, as Matt mentioned before, and in this case, we've inserted some Salesforce information. So this is a case where this customer, Stella Pavlova, dialed in and was able to get some self-help information. They were able to check how this ticket was going on Salesforce, and then they decided, hey, even though I was able to check the information, I still need to talk to a representative. So they hit that button, and they were transferred to me. And when I received this call, I was presented all of this information. These are actually pulled straight from the Salesforce fields. And so very, very easy to do because we do have that out-of-the-box integration with Salesforce. And so it's basically just clicking on what fields you want to include and what fields you want to send your contact center agent or have the customer be able to access via the telephone interface. And I'll show you a little bit more of that as we put in a live call here in a second. But before we do that, let's go down to queues and show you what that looks like. Now, I have visibility of all the queues. Again, because I'm a supervisor, if this person was just an agent, they would still have access to queues here, but they would only see the queues that they were involved in. So they would probably see, a very small subset of all of these queues that we have listed. But just to show you what I can see as a supervisor, I can sort this by, right now it's sorted by name, so all the A queues are at the top. However, I can sort it by, where are we missing or hitting our service level. I can do it by, probably an important one is who has the most customers waiting, and let's put that at the top, and those will always go to the top. So if Keith Hunt had 3 more people call in, he would have 4 waiting, and he would jump up to the top here. So it is real time and responsive. I could go to longest waiting. Maybe that's most important. See who's longest waiting in the queue. We don't have any customers waiting, so obviously that's 0. And if I want to dig deeper, as you notice, I have the CC Specialist queue checked here. So I did that just by clicking on CC Specialist. And so I'm able to see the current stats, which there's not much, right? They just have 1 abandoned call. But I'm also able to see the current skills associated with this queue, and I can see the activity. Who's in this queue, what users are logged into this queue, and what their status is, and what the duration of that is. Again, just like with all the other columns here, I can sort if I want to see availables at the top, or if I want to see who's doing what for the longest, because that's generally a problem, right? And we'll put the longest at the top. I can sort those. So we notice that Lou is away right here. We'll happen to know that Lou shouldn't be away for 21 hours. So as a supervisor, I probably want to check into that. And so I'll click here on Lou, and that takes me to this Team Directory tab with a focus on Lou, because that's who I clicked on. So I can see his current status, his current stats, what his workload is, and I can see, based on messages, based on calls, or that universal queue, what he's been offered, what he's handled, what's been requeued and transferred for Lou. I can also see the skills that are associated with Lou, which tells me what queues he's associated with. Skills are how we tie the individual to these particular queues. And so, for instance, if I'm a supervisor and I say, you know what, I know that Lou has the capability to work the South Central queue, and I'm really going to need him today because it's going to be busy, I will add that South Central skill to Lou, and what will happen is you'll notice that the South Central queue is now added to Lou. So if we have any activity in the South Central queue, he will also be responsible for that queue. Now, I'm not going to do that to Lou, so I'm going to remove this from Lou, and you'll see that disappear. But first, it's going to prompt me and say, hey, are you sure you want to remove this skill? So it gives me a little, in case that was an accident, it does pop up and remind me, and I say, yes, I do want to remove that. So I did remove that, so notice he's no longer in the South Central queue. So this team directory, I can sort, I can filter. So we'll sort by duration here. Again, anybody doing something for too long, it's probably a problem. I did sort by available and busy. I'm going to clear that. I should say I did filter. I'm going to clear that just so you can get a scope of a lot of agents here listed here. So, it just continues to scroll down the more agents that I have. But I probably, as a supervisor, I'm probably more focused on the folks that are here and doing things today that are available or busy, not folks that are offline or away. So I can filter those down, or I might be focused on specific queues, right? So I could do the same with these queues. I could filter those down based on queues, the queues that I want to focus on. So we've gone through Hub Inbox, we've gone through queues. This was Team Directory. Let's take a quick look at Insights, which is our reporting mechanism here within Mitel 1CX. And so as I click on Summary, this is going to paint these panels in. And so across the top are tabs of information. So we've sorted these, we've pieced together these tabs that are in relation to whatever, part of the platform that you want to look at. So in this case, this is Summary. So we're going to get an overall summary of the entire platform here. So you see I do have some of these panels that have counters. Some of them have graphs here, and as I hover over, I get tooltips for these particular graphs. So this is number of interactions offered to the system month over month, and I have voice and messaging here, so don't have any universal queues yet to be able to report on. If I did, that would be another bar that you would notice here in this graph. But you can see here from June, July, August, as we started to ramp up there, we're definitely trending up. We're still in September, so it's a little lower there, but I have a feeling it's going to be up there as well. Again, number of interactions offered to queues month over month, and so you see that again trending up. Any of these that I hover over, I can download these results from this panel. I can either download to CSV, Excel, or JSON, and this is something that I could, if this is something I cared of, I really want to see the number of interactions offered to these queues, and I want to be able to put that into my own BI tool. I could do that. So I could import this in CSV, Excel, or JSON format. And it's all right there available for me. Just to give you an idea of what these look like, as I hover over these different categories of the user states, notice that it highlights whichever one I hover over. So it is very responsive, very interactive for these. And of course, I can still hover over an individual one and see the exact amount of time, the exact number that this relates to. So I'm going to click through a couple of these so you get an idea. Queue's probably a big one, particularly when it comes to folks in a contact center environment. They would probably have a lot of need to view this queue tabs. And notice that I do have start date, end date, and I can filter this down by queue. And so again, as I hover over these, I do get more tooltip information. I still have the download available if I want to see that. I'm just going to scroll down through. Not only do we have these various graphs and charts available, but we also have a little bit more grid style. So, and these are interactive as well. So if I want to see who's handling the most interactions, I can certainly sort this. So Dennis Dombrowski is handled, of 27 offered, he's handled 25. So he's the top of our leaderboard here. Or, in a bad way, if I want to sort and see, what are we abandoning, and that's probably something we want to look at maybe correcting in this universal queue. We need to talk to those guys because they're abandoning 23 out of 23. So that's probably a problem. Going up to user. So let's take a look at some of these user panels and see what kind of reporting we have here. And again, notice this is real time, but it's also historical information. So I can go back by date, start date, end date. I can sort by a particular user. And notice how quickly this paints out. So I'm able to get my information really, really quickly here and not have to maybe, as opposed to scheduling this and waiting for several minutes for it to arrive. If I had the need to run a report right away, I could do that very quickly. One more report I will look at is this interactions trace. Matt mentioned it before. This would be more like a lifecycle type report where I can see where maybe an interaction came in, it was placed on hold, it was transferred before it got someplace. Somebody's complaining, they got transferred 4 times. This would probably be the interactions trace would be the one that you would want to go to, and you could see where a particular caller called in or a particular person messaged in and they were transferred several times before they were actually handled and talked to someone. So this is where that would appear. So it does, in this case, it's taking a second longer here to repaint as there's a lot of information, but you can see here that it does. So I can see the ID of this call, and I can see it's ringing, it gets handled, it's ended, and I can see who did that, what queue it was, what the caller name was, or the caller ID was, and then who received that. So this would be where you get a little deeper information. So real quickly, I want to go back up to the hub inbox.